I am playing Valheim in reverse, using innovative tricks and challenging myself to beat Valheim, starting with the last boss and working my way backwards through the game. Welcome back to beating Valheim in reverse. Before we get started, I am currently trying to make it to 2,000 subscribers, and we are growing quickly, so if you could help me get there, that would mean a lot to me, and thank you guys so much for watching. Last episode, we dipped into the Mistlands a little bit, as well as got a bunch of portals down around the map that would give us a bit more accessibility to all of the other biomes, not just the ones that we visited, and today we're going to be venturing into the mountains a little bit. Last episode, the Mistlands was a little too hard, and also I was not getting what I wanted from it, and it did not seem like that was going to be the most efficient way. On top of that, there were still things I could do in the mountain that would make the Mistlands easier, as well as I did have a chance to find some of my beginner iron here, which could help me greatly as well in making it through the Mistlands to getting a lot more iron later in the game. So I'm going to test that first. Last episode, a couple of you guys informed me that looking for iron using the too hard method in the swamp, I was not doing it right. You're actually looking for zeros, which makes a lot more sense to how people are doing it, but I can use the too hard method to try and find silver, and you don't even have to do it with a stag breaker. So we're going to be trying to do that a little bit, gather some just general mountain resources because we haven't really gotten any of the recipes from the mountain yet because we haven't really killed anything. But the main thing that we're looking for as we make our way up this mountain is frost caves, because that has the iron possibility as well as the possibility for better armor for us, assuming that we get a couple wolf kills as well while we're up here. I also may try and establish a couple portals or at least some beds to make sure that I don't die, because I don't have that many frost meads made, and making a bunch of runs up the mountain is not going to be fun if I'm using corpse run. And right away upon entering the mountain, I had no problem finding a couple of creatures to kill, so I'd at least get some of the recipes. Some freeze glands for possibly some future ice cream, as well as the wolf hide for my possible new armor set, assuming that we find some frost caves, were both things that I needed, and the wolf trophy would give me the option for a wolf cape later if I really wanted it. On top of that, I would also need to find dragon eggs and hopefully the motor location, because I don't need it right now, but I will eventually, and having it marked on my map will make that endgame section a little less annoying. Something that I'm worried about getting to with this series, and while it wouldn't be the biggest inconvenience, would be getting all the way to the Ashlands, finishing it, and then actually having to worry about everything backwards because I didn't do the work to find it while I was in those biomes. So as we progress here, I'm definitely going to try my hardest to find everything that we need for each biome, including the bosses and the stuff that we need to summon it. That way when we get to the end, we can kind of just run through all the bosses backwards one after another. And in literally less than 5 minutes of being on the mountain, I got extremely lucky in finding a frost cave right off the rip. However, I needed to make sure that one, I marked it in case I need to get back to it, but two, that I put a bed down outside because I'm severely underprepared for this cave. And unfortunately for me, I forgot to get wood and bring it with me, which means I'm either going to have to harvest it and risk alerting a bunch of stuff that could kill me, or just mark it for now and go back down the mountain. Now, because I'm already up here, I'm just going to opt to go ahead and get the wood. However, it did obviously attract an extreme amount of attention from nearby drakes, but luckily no wolves or stone golems for now, so I'm pretty much safe because the fine wood bow, while weak, is not really that weak compared to the drakes. And in pretty much no time, I had my wood ready after a little scuffle with the drakes outside, and I could set up my bed. And this gives me two things. One, a quick respawn, so I don't have to worry about it too much, but two, this means that I will not have to use any of my frost meads if I do die, saving me a ton of resources and time, and now I can somewhat safely venture into the cave and hope that nothing breaks my bed while I'm inside. Obviously, when entering the cave, I was greeted with bats, because what else would you find in these frost caves other than these useless freaking creatures that just annoy you while you're trying to get through? However, let's go over what I'm looking for in here so you guys can tell if this has been a success or not before we even get into it. We're looking for, honestly, a lot right now. Anything that we can find is good. The motor location is decent because we will need it at some point. A couple wolves would be decent because we would be able to get some wolf fangs in order to build some of the stuff like in the future, like the spear or anything like that that we may need. But the two really big things that we're looking for is the hair for the armor set, a lot of it at that, because we are going to need a lot for an armor set, especially an upgraded one, because that is going to serve us far into the Ashlands if my calculations of what I'm going to be able to build are correct. On top of that, we need wooden doors that contain iron. Now, they don't guarantee the chance of iron, but they do have a chance of dropping it, and they drop ingots, which means we wouldn't even have to smelt it, we'd just have to get it back to base. And if we could find a bunch of those in a bunch of these frost caves, we may not even need to go get iron from the Mistlands because we'd have a ton from here. So we need to look for all of that stuff as we start to venture in early, and obviously we'll find a bunch of other things like obsidian, which is useful, and other like little trinkets that we may be able to use later in the series. And while down the first path was fairly uneventful, we did get some hair, which unlocked our recipes that we would be needing, and the rest of that path was pretty much completely empty. So I decided to head back up to the main entrance, and at the main entrance, instead of taking the right path, I would decide to test out straight, which was also empty, which kind of made this cave feel not too lousy because I hadn't gotten on the next path yet and I didn't really know yet, but I had not found a lot of what I needed, and the potential to find enough hair to make my armor as well as other stuff was getting pretty low. But I did get, as I descended down the left path, very lucky, as I found my first wooden door. Now, there's no guarantee that I'll get iron from it, but I get to at least try and test and figure out if it's possible, because as soon as I get one iron ingot from this, I'm going to run with it, as well as there was a ton of other stuff in here, which implies that I will get more hair and a bunch of the other stuff that I may need. And on top of the hair and other stuff, I will also need a cultist trophy at some point to make my Fenrir armor, which means that I need to kill this thing. But like I said, it also implies that there is probably more hair in there, as well as the opportunity for some decent loot. And the opportunity for that loot got much stronger once I realized that this was not just a single room, as I could see at least 3 cultists just alerted by the sound alone, which did not include all of the sleeping wolves that were still in the cave and whatever else couldn't hear me, which did give me a lot of hope for how many resources I'd be able to collect from this cave. And being able to just stand on these stairs and farm them, as long as I had enough arrows, made it pretty easy to get through them. And finally, after a few minutes of fighting them, I had killed everything and cleared everything from inside, and in the process they had actually broken the door, and it did not drop me any iron, but I was still going to hold hope for that for later. For now though, it was time to go investigate what I had found, and unfortunately for me, it seemed like some of it was bugged inside the wall, which was no big deal because I was still able to pick up at least a little bit of it. But on the other hand, there was actually only one room, which was odd because like I said, there was 3 cultists, so I really thought there would be more than that. But there was also clearly another downstairs area that we could go to after we collected this. And inside this single room, even though there wasn't multiple, I got pretty lucky as most of the little Fenrir hair things were pretty much full, and there was a bunch on the stand, which is getting me pretty close to at least being able to make one of my pieces of armor when I get back, which will protect me from the cold, keep me a lot safer, make the mountain biome quite a bit easier, and allow me to explore more, as well as give me a ton more armor, and allow me to progress to making the whole set. And upon looking downstairs, I guess I had figured out where the rest of the cultists came from, as there was a bunch more, and it seemed like a ton of rooms down there. Unfortunately, they would not get stuck on these stairs and would come upstairs, which made it a little bit harder for me to kill them. However, after they were dead and I got downstairs, I realized this cave is an absolute jackpot for hair specifically, which is exactly what I need. So we're gonna grab all this, head back to base, and get some of our stuff organized, maybe reset our spawn down there, and then decide what to do from there. Okay, so it seems after going back to base that I need more wolf hide and maybe even some leather scraps, but the wolf hide / pelt is going to be much more important and a little bit harder to get. So I reset my spawn at base and slept so that way it would be daytime, and all I need to do is head up there and find a couple of them. Alright, so I did find some wolves for the wolf pelt. However, I'm out of arrows, and I did end up catching a nice stray little death on the bottom of the mountain. It wasn't hard to get my stuff back. However, I did kind of waste a frost mead with a bunch of time left on it, but I got the wolf pelt I needed, and I can go back to base, get some leather scraps, and make the Fenrir armor, at least my first piece. Okay, it did take me longer to get the boar hide than I thought it would. However, I can make the Fenrir coat now, which will keep me warm in the mountains, meaning I won't really have to worry about my frost meads unless I get really screwed for one of my bodies. I have almost enough hair for another piece, but I don't have enough leather scraps, as well as I will probably need more wolf hide for upgrading it, so I'm gonna head back up to the mountains with what I have, try and find some more stuff, caves, maybe even a couple stone golems for a couple other things that I'm going to try, and they can also help me get wolf pelt. So we're going to just head up there and see what we can find again, and keep our hopes high for that possibility of iron. And very quickly I was able to find another cave, which is the best way for me to get iron, as well as I got to explore a lot more of the mountain because I have my frost resistance naturally, which is much nicer than having to worry about using my frost resistance meads. Now, I was a little stupid with this because while I did have my spawn set lower on the mountain, I had not set my spawn at this one, which was kind of terrifying. But just upon peeking in the entrance, I can see that there's a red glow at the end of the cave, meaning that even if we don't get iron or anything else out of this, we are getting the motor location. But we do still have a very high chance of getting the other stuff that we need as well, because we also need more Fenris hair so that we can make more pieces of our armor set and start getting them upgraded, so we actually have a chance at staying alive. And not too much further in the cave, we got kind of lucky. Another door. And will it give us the iron piece that we need? I really freaking hope so, because I'd like to get this iron journey started, but this one was not our door. But luckily for me, this cave was pretty huge and there was a lot of doors to destroy. However, I just wanted to start clearing everything out around these before I started breaking them, so I wouldn't get whacked from the back, because as I said, I do not have a spawn point at this one and I really cannot afford to die. On top of that, I am getting a ton of Fenris hair. As long as I can get this stuff back to base safely, which there is definitely a couple close calls, as long as I can get this stuff back to base safely though, I should be able to build my full armor set, assuming I can get the wolf hide as well as the leather scraps and anything else I might need, and I may even be able to upgrade it on pretty early on if I keep getting hair like this. Unfortunately for me, partway through clearing the cave, I ran out of arrows again, and I needed to start heading back at least for a second just to recoup for a minute. However, on the way back, I was able to find some onion seeds, which will help me because I already have my garden set up in my cultivator, and I will be able to use that for recipes, assuming that I get my cauldron more upgraded, but this will help keep me alive in the mountains and the further biomes, as the more food and the more stam that I have, the better. After this point in time, I went to the swamp at night just to see if I could find any oozers, and while I did not get any to drop iron. However, I died, and that led to about an hour-long charade of me realizing that I had left my stuff on the mountain, not feeling like resetting my spawn, and trying desperately to get back down and back to my stuff in the swamp, which took a long time, but it was not very entertaining. It was just a lot of death. After that, I walked to a nearby mountain that was a little bit closer, that was up near the trader, to try and find more frost caves, as I was not finding any more on the mountain that I had a portal to, and if I could get them over here, I could just walk the iron back to base a lot easier. And while this cave was huge and actually amazing for a lot of the things that I was needing, I got tons more hair, got to kill a bunch of cultists, was upping my bow skill by quite a bit because of how much I was using it, and like I said, it was just a ginormous cave, but I was still getting extremely unlucky. I had broken like 4 or 5 more doors, and at this point I was honestly losing hope for being able to do it, but the only piece of hope that I had in the first place was the fact that the wiki literally states that you can get iron from this, and that it drops iron ingots, so I still held out hope for a little bit longer, simply just because it was listed directly on the wiki that this was a feasible way to get iron. After about 30 minutes of clearing, I had broken almost every door, cleared almost every room, and I was starting to lose hope for this being a feasible iron method, because even if I got it at this point, it still wouldn't be very good for lots of iron, but I just needed one piece to help me get the hope, and there it was. Finally, a piece of iron, an iron ingot, and I was close enough to run it back to base. On top of that, I had more wolf hide, Fenris hair for Fenris armor, and I was going to be able to do this, even if it took me forever through these ice caves, or I could go back to the Mistlands and try it, but I had a bunch of options now. No matter what happened at this point, I now know it is technically possible for me to at least get the iron I need for Crom, the Arbalist, and make it into the Ashlands with the boat that I need the iron nails for as well. So, that being said, now it is just time to find as many of these doors as I possibly can, in as many of these caves as I possibly can, try and get as much iron as I possibly can, and get all of it home so I can start using it on something. Now, lucky for me, though this mountain seemed really small at first when I started looking at it because it was so close to spawn and so close to my base, it actually had a second cave up the hill from it, and this one had more doors, more cultists, and more stuff for me to grab, which was awesome because it was more stuff that I could run back to base, assuming that I got another piece of iron. And not only in that entire cave did I get 1 iron, but I actually got 4, and this was still the same cave that was very close to base, and on top of that, I got all the hair I could ever want for my entire set, and I was close enough to run the iron back to base. And while I couldn't make anything like a pickaxe yet, I could make a stone cutter, I could make a cooking area if I wanted, I could make some upgraded stuff, and pick what I wanted this iron to go to, and maybe make it into something else later, but for now, I do have iron. It is feasible to use this method, and next episode, we may even go visit the Mistlands with a similar one, to try and get as much as we possibly can, build our iron pickaxe, and move on to the silver stuff, but that is going to have to wait till next episode. If you guys are enjoying the series so far, please make sure to let me know down in the comments below, and as I said at the beginning, I am currently trying to make it to 2,000 subscribers, and if you guys could help me get there, that would mean a lot to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do truly hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.